Welcome everybody to another edition of Think with a Drink. This is the weekly webinar series brought to you by the Ares Foundation for Financial Education. And for this show, Craig and I were very, very excited because we have guests here. We got a full bar going on. This is so awesome for us, like something that we don't get to have every show. This one, I think this show is like tuned for just about everybody in the audience out there. It's called Should I Stay or Should I Go? And this is about moving out of that home for seniors, for elderly, for that type of thing. And so if you are a senior citizen, clearly this is a show for you, but it's also the next generation, right? Should I move mom? Shouldn't I move mom? What am I going to do? How am I going to do that? What are the ways to do it? And so what Craig and I did is we brought two guests in who are specialists at this. We will introduce them in a second. Before we get into that, if we can, just real quick, my name is Tom Alessi. I am the president of the Ares Foundation. I have been in financial services now for 25 years. Actually now a certified fiduciary as of the end of last year. I've been a fiduciary in my whole time, but now I'm actually a certified fiduciary, which steps it up, which means I just act in the best interest of any of my clients when I'm giving guidance or advice. I want to introduce my vice president, Craig, if you can introduce yourself.
Sure. So I'm Craig Richardson. I'm the vice president of the Ares Foundation. I've been in financial services less time than Tom, 20 years. And I specialize in working with families and individuals, helping to find their financial goals and have a better relationship with their money.
And real quick on the Ares Foundation, that's the next slide. So the Ares Foundation, we're a nonprofit. We are dedicated to the mission of trying to help everyone have a better relationship with their money. Because whether you realize it or not, you are in a relationship with your money. And just like every other personal relationship that you have, there are behaviors and triggers and things that cause us to act, well, Craig and I like to say, a little irrationally sometimes when it comes to dealing with our money and our finances. And that's all we at Ares try to do, try to help everybody sort of take a little bit of that emotion out of dealing with money and finances. You can visit us at aresfoundation.org. The next one should just be, how to find us, see us, follow us, like us, whatever it is you're supposed to do. I don't know what you're supposed to do, but like, follow, do that. The LinkedIn, we've got a YouTube channel with our videos. We're also here on a channel on New TV, so you can check us out there. But, if you can do it, we certainly appreciate anybody following us on social media. That would be very, very grateful and appreciative of that.
We don't know what it means, but we appreciate it.
Yes, we don't know what it means. All right, so enough with us. We want to introduce our guests here. So we have two special guests with us. We have Erin and Lauren. We're going to let you two introduce yourselves. Erin, if you would like to start.
Yeah, thank you for having us. Our number one mission is really to change the way we view and support aging in America. So any opportunity we have to come and talk about our craft and what we're so passionate about really excites us. My name's Erin DiCarlo. I'm the founder and president and owner of Dovetail Companies. I created Dovetail to be a one point of contact for any service an older adult or their family may need when thinking about or executing a major life transition. So I'm a certified care manager, a certified dementia practitioner, a certified senior advisor, and we'll also talk more about our real estate credentialing. We are senior real estate specialists and seller representative specialists. And one last credential is we are senior and specialty move managers. So also helping people what to do with all of your stuff, all those things you've collected through your life. And so that's me, but I'd love for Lauren to tell you about her too.
And I'm Lauren Watts. It's so nice to be here. I think the number one thing to know about us is that we conduct our business at the coffee tables of our clients' homes. And that's what we really love doing. We love hearing the stories about their lives and where they've been and where they want to see their future. And I think when you're in their space, that's when you can really start to get to know them and who they are. So our number one mission is to provide education on what's out there for them and how can we get them there with ease.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you can bring the next slide up, which is just real quick, which is on Dovetail itself, which is one of the reasons that we wanted to have you in, because we were talking about this topic and realizing what Craig and I know in this space is, okay, we know something, but we don't know as much.
Yes.
And clearly wanted to have somebody, and certainly Dovetail, like you said, sort of that holistic approach of everything.
Yeah, when you think about if you have any experience in carpentry or any craft and woodworking, a
built this bar.
There you go. You built
There
this
you
bar.
go.
It's pretty sturdy. So we'll see. Do I see any dovetail joints on this bar? Though I don't know.
Not today.
I didn't get my router up.
Actually, interesting fact about me: senior year superlative, I received the most industrious award. So I do have some woodshop experience.
Wonderful.
But
There you go.
if
You can help Craig.
can help me build the
building
next
the
one.
bar.
Yeah, okay. I have a cup that says I need to start volunteering for things. A mug at home. Anyway, a dovetail joint is really seamlessly fitting together the pieces in a very strategic way. And so after working in the aging space for many years, due to ageism in America, really, we don't talk about aging. We don't plan for it. And for many people, especially now with longevity increasing, people end up at a point in their life needing resources. And the resources up until now are really segmented in silos, depending on what your needs are. So it's common that people don't really know how to navigate the space because they haven't had to before.
Right.
And it's an ever-growing and changing landscape of options. So about 7 years ago, sleep deprived after the birth of my third daughter, I had a literal aha moment in the middle of the night. I was helping support many clients through this process and realizing that the resources were segmented and overwhelming. And I said, what if I created a one point of contact solution where, regardless of where you were in your process, professionals, clients, family members could contact an expert professional and we could help guide and ensure expert advice to ensure informed decisions, really.
Yeah.
And so our business has multi-facets, and it's not just the elder or the older adult. Our services are also tailored for active new retirees or people
right,
planning
yeah.
retirement. There's really anyone, we start aging the day we're born.
Yeah.
And so life is just a series of transitions. And so our service really helps people gain clarity and ease regardless of where they are in their own personal aging experience.
When you say seniors, and like I talk, about college, having college
Ah, yeah.
students, right, and become an empty nester. Well, all of a sudden that 4 or 5 bedroom house you had, it's just overwhelming, right?
Yeah, the home that served you when your children were young probably doesn't serve you as an empty nester.
Right, you may be in your early 50s,
Yes.
60s, and thinking, well, should I downsize, and what's the next move? And
Yeah.
is this my last move, or am I just my next move?
Downsize so the children don't have an opportunity to come back.
Yeah.
No.
I didn't say that. But
I did.
All right, next slide, because I just want to get us into some of it. So real quick with the agenda here is we're just going to talk about, should I stay or should I go? How does that all work? And then, the rethinking your process,
Yeah.
rethinking where you're at. We'll touch on what's on tap real quick if you want to bring that up. So, the whole idea here with Think with a Drink is that we try to make some of these topics that are, let's face it, some of them are not the easiest conversations to have, especially if we're trying to talk mom and dad and where you're going to go and what's going to happen with the house. So we want to make them a little bit more casual, a little bit more relaxed, and we can't think of a better way to do that than with something to sip on. In this case, we've got Fest Beer. This is from Radiant Pig Brewing. It is a Fest beer, which is similar to an Oktoberfest. So you think of Oktoberfest, you're thinking, sausage and pretzels and things on the grill. So that's what you would be pairing this with. There's a malty caramel flavoring to it. So you've got that, big, bold, spicy type of flavors. That's what you're looking for when you're dealing with a Fest beer or an Oktoberfest. Again, we talked about schnitzels and sauerkraut and those type of things. That's what you're
Well, we
looking for.
should have done a food pairing.
Well, yeah, we haven't gotten there yet.
Next
That's
time.
soon. That's soon. on
there's
it.
a bear on a bike. How much more do you need?
I know, right?
All
Like there could be a
all right,
children's
so-
book around this.
So should I stay or should I go? So I guess, one of the questions that we wanted to ask was, like, when does somebody, you talked about this, like we start aging the day we're born. When does somebody start this process to be looking at it and saying, what's the age where it's like, I should do this or I should be thinking about this?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Most people who contact us initially are either in the throes of something, a loss of a
The
spouse
crisis
or a
or something,
crisis or,
yeah.
you name it. I think in America, because we put our blinders on, we don't want to think about or talk about aging, it takes sometimes, like COVID, for a lot of our clients to say, this isn't working,
this
something's
isn't
not working, let me think about it. But really, I think it's similar to estate planning or financial advising. Every 1, 3, and 5 years, assess your life situation. Really pay attention to what's working well for me. Does my home still serve me? And not waiting for that major life event.
Right, and I think that makes sense when you really start to think of that and to say, because I think we all get caught up in the day-to-day, right? Living is living, right? And we sort of let things go, I guess is the way to say that. Like I'm stuck, and not thinking about, gee, could I be better served someplace else?
Well,
So-
change is hard.
Change
right?
is hard.
And the
Change is
older
very
you get, the
hard.
harder it is. And you're
Absolutely.
comfortable in your routines and you don't want to change them. So,
Absolutely, and Lauren can speak to this too. Our homes are so much more than bricks and mortar,
Right.
Do you want to talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, we always say, it's more than the four walls that surround you, right? So it's the memories, bringing your family up in that home, everything that you've accumulated over time, things that maybe you've taken from your parents' house and brought into your home
Right.
that start to have a life and a vision in yours. We talk about it as right sizing. It's really not downsizing. So when you think about right sizing, you're constantly right sizing your life.
Yeah.
Very similar to financial planning. How can I adjust my financial goals?
Right.
You need to think about how can I adjust my life and how that's working for me. Erin said the house that you lived in, bringing up your kids may no longer serve you today. How do we look at everything in your home and your life and right size that for where you are right now? And then adjust that as things change. I think too often as adults, we don't pay attention to that because, as Erin mentioned, we put our blinders on. We don't want to think about it. We don't want to think about aging, but it really doesn't have to have a negative connotation. Let's look
Right.
at it a different way.
Right, and I think one of the things that does come up, like you talked about earlier, like the segmenting, that everything is, you got to go here for this and go there for that type of thing, is that a lot of times what seniors, at least who we talk to, think is, I'm going to move out of my house. You're going to try to put me into
Yes.
a skilled
It's that you're
nursing,
putting
or
me somewhere.
or putting me into some sort of community
Put
type
me
of
on
thing.
ice.
Yeah, huh?
You're going to put me out on ice.
Yeah.
Do you remember the bumper sticker that said, I don't see them anymore, but we should be nice to your be nice to your children. They're going to choose your nursing home one
Yeah,
day.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we see this a lot, parent-child role reversal, children having to step in to be the bad guy to make decisions for their aging parent, but really that's because the aging parent hasn't put a solid plan in place for themselves.
Right.
So a lot of the work we do, all of the work we do, is engaging the older adult directly in this process to put a comprehensive plan together for all potential scenarios.
Yeah.
Whether it is to successfully age in place at home, what does home mean to you? Maybe it's right sizing to a condominium or a townhome and adapting that environment. Maybe for a more social person, it is considering an active, engaging senior living community. So we really have to get to know the older adult. I want to make that clear. I think so many adult children are put into an uncomfortable situation of feeling they have to push their loved one into a place or a decision making, when really if we engage the older adult and give them their autonomy to be their own decision maker, the process goes smoother,
Right.
faster, and everyone has peace of mind, and adult children can stay in their role as adult child.
And I think it's
And Erin,
important.
sorry,
Yeah,
and
that's
Erin,
okay.
Erin's pointing to me because she knows my story and having gone through this. I went through this with my parents, right? It was,
Yeah.
and I'm the planner, I'm the guy, right? So I'm having this conversation, and my mom was ready to go. They were in their late 80s, living in the house that they'd been living in for 50 plus years. That was not working at the time. My dad was adamant, would not go. So there was this dynamic going back and forth with them, and me trying to step in and say, look, as your advisor, as your planner, like we have to do something. We've got to, like you said, it was almost like a push.
Yep. And
it
they said,
didn't-
"Be quiet, you're our
yeah,
son.
it
Don't
didn't
tell
work.
us
It
what
was
to
like,
do."
yeah, go to your room. You know,
Yes,
that type of
yes,
thing. You know,
yes.
That's
Yeah.
what happened. Is
Yeah.
basically is what went on.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, what were you
That's
gonna
okay.
say?
I think the most important thing to notice too is that when you're planning for your future, it's not one path forward, right? There's a lot of branches that can come off of that path. So the sooner that you start engaging in those conversations with your loved ones, the better, because you may say, ultimately, yes, I want to stay in my home, but here are the markers that I'm going to make certain decisions to make sure that my home is right-sized for my life, or if I can no longer socially engage with my friends or drive, I'm going to go to assisted living.
Right.
What are those markers that are going to help you make decisions in that time frame so that your children don't have to step in and make those decisions for
Right.
you?
Well, don't you see though or see this a lot with the fear is that they're losing independence.
Yes.
They're
Oh.
losing their ability to choose.
Yes.
They're being treated like a child, so they're losing their respect. So I think that's a lot of that goes on as that pushback, as opposed to like sometimes when we work with people and they make a choice, it's like an unburdening.
Yes, so two things on that point, 100%. We have really tried to ask our clients to redefine the word and the term independence. So oftentimes in our culture, we associate the word independence with physical independence, whether it's
Right.
I'm not using a walker, I'm
Yeah,
independent,
right,
or I'm
right.
not
I
leaving
can
my
still
house.
drive.
I can still drive. When really, I genuinely believe independence means remaining in control over your life's decisions.
Correct.
As long as you are the decision maker, you're the captain of the ship steering your life, you are independent. And I think the biggest way we can do that and help support our clients with that change and shift in perspective is demystifying all of it. Meaning, how many clients we've met with who say, it's great to meet you, you're taking me out of this house in a body bag. And I say, well, that's wonderful, Mr. Smith. I'm not taking you ever anywhere. Wherever you choose to go, you're going to choose to go. But before you make that statement, do you have a true understanding of the options available to you?
Right.
Let's go see all of the variable options. If you make that statement at the end of the process, I fully support it, and we'll make that a reality for you. 9 out of 10 times, once we demystify and address whatever the fears are, the concerns, and show the increased quality of life that can be gained, Mr. Smith usually says, and this is what drives the family members crazy, Erin, I should have done this sooner.
Yeah.
And the kids are like, what?
The problem, though, is that people don't know what they don't know, right? And Google is our friend, but it can also be our worst enemy. There are so many options out there, and there's not a one-size-fits-all option for everyone. So if you don't know where you can go or what your options are, then yes, they want to stay home. But once they see that and see I can have my independence, I can still have control over this, it's amazing what happens.
Well, and like we said, the whole idea that change is hard and change is there, but I think for a lot of times with that, like we said, it's very, very comfortable at home, and someplace else is scary, right? It's different. And so I don't know if there's anything about like trying to do almost like staycations in terms of some of these communities and some of the things like that.
So we've built our business around something called positive psychology. I don't know if that's anything that you've learned about in the past, but it's
I feel
fascinating.
really negative about it though.
But traditional psychology approach is like there's some point of suffering. We're not doing well, there's fear or anxiety or whatever. We're going to treat people to get to a point of no suffering. I don't know about you, but I don't want to just not suffer in my life experience. I'd like to actually find some happiness and fulfillment and engagement. And so there's some pillars to the positive psychology teachings. And it's really self-determination for motivation for change. We have to be engaged and wanting something better for ourselves to actually make change. So what we do is we focus on what's working really well for you at home.
So is that the pillars? Do we want to bring those
Yeah,
up?
yeah, that's
Can you bring
perfect
the
timing.
next slide up so that we can have that? So next one. So this is what you're talking about, the redefining your thought process?
So instead of coming in and saying, okay, Mr. Smith, let's talk about your options, aging at home,
Yeah, yeah.
assisted living, independent living, that's kind of a moot point.
Pick a card.
Yeah, pick a card, any card. It's kind of a moot point if Mr. Smith hasn't gained clarity on what he wants to see for himself. And so we help him do that by focusing on what he loves about being at home. What serves you well here? What were some of the activities and things that you do here or used to do here that you'd like to do more of?
Right.
Once we can get clear on what makes you tick, then we can show the option that allows you to regain that in your life or have more of that in your life. I think the pandemic proved to all of us, regardless of age, social isolation. As humans, we are herd creatures. We're not meant to be isolated and alone. And so that social piece is a piece that we cannot recreate always at home. And so helping people find that clarity on their own by really focusing on what worked well for them previously in life and how do we add that back into their life. But there are also parts of their home that can't be recreated. And you can't minimize that. I think we do too much of that in our society.
So when you say that, and one of the things, if you can bring the slide up again for us, just so we have that, just so everybody can sort of see that, like, because one of the things you talk about there is the first pillar, if you will, on that is physical environment, right? So
Yes.
that's what's causing either problems or issues at home.
It's actually more of what does their home look like and where do they spend most of their time. So when we enter into our clients' homes, we walk that home with them. It's a lot of talking and engaging and tell us where you spend most of your time. Let's look at these pictures. It's not focusing on what's not working well, but bring us through your life so that we can really get ingrained in it. So we quickly start to see that 12-room home, they only sit in 2 or 3 rooms.
Right.
So that is sort of what we call their command center or their hub. How can we help recreate that outside of there or get them to realize that maybe that home is just too much? So it truly is their physical environment. But we have a lot of clients that say social engagement is really important to me. I want to be around people my own age. I want to continue to be very active and engaged in life, but they're not doing that at home.
Right.
Why? They did it one time, but they're not doing it right now. How can we encourage them to recreate their physical environment so that they are doing that?
So do they get that aha moment, like
Yes.
like walking through
Yes.
that 10-room home and go,
It's amazing, and the adult child's in the corner like, how are you doing this?
Just by engaging and
Yeah.
asking questions and not pushing. I'll give 2 very specific examples. I had an older adult Italian client, and he always grew his tomatoes. So it was hard for him to bend down and do the tomatoes anymore, but growing the tomatoes was really important to him. So creating high bed planters to be able to easily manage. And he ended up choosing a senior living community that had a patio space where we could have those custom planters created. That part of the physical environment at home was very important to him. We had another client with physical decline.
Right.
Cooking her Sunday sauce and meatballs was so important to her. And the new assisted living apartment did not have a full kitchen, but there was a beautiful communal kitchen.
Yep.
All the residents every Sunday would come. She would do a meatball tasting, make her sauce. She was able to continue. And by the way, she hadn't been cooking her sauce for anyone at home, meaning that there was no one there to eat the
Right,
meatballs.
right.
So how do we, sometimes it is physically, like we do need a kitchen for her. That's important to her. We do need to be able to plant tomatoes. How do we recreate some of those physical environments in a new space to work well? And to Lauren's point, like very often older adults, their kitchen table is their grand central
Yeah,
station.
right.
The kitchen table has to be recreated in a new environment for them to really physically settle into that new space.
right. And so, and bring up the slide again, just so we have that, please.
Finances.
Yes, so, you got the emotional, right? Right, so we understand that. That's the tug, right? Okay, I don't want to be giving that up, right? You talked about social, but yeah, the finances, like how much is this, like that's on our side,
Yeah.
how much is this big 10-room home, taking away from between whether it's taxes or upkeep or whatever the case may be. That's the other one that comes up a lot, which is I had to do all these repairs.
Well, the other thing too is people become house rich and cash poor.
Yes.
Yes,
Right.
making the hard-earned equity in your longtime home work for you at
Correct.
this later stage is imperative in our professional opinions. Whether you're aging place at home and you need to tap into the equity that you've built in your home, and there are wonderful financial resources to do that, or using the sale value of your home to afford this next step and investing it with trusted advisors. That's why we're so happy to connect with you, to make that money work for you when you need it most, which is at this next stage, is so important. And we have very specific advice and process for older adults to do this and do this well. Unfortunately, all too often, we see people consider options that aren't financially viable to them.
Yeah.
And so they put all their eggs in this community basket. They wait for years. They get the phone call that your spot is now available. The community goes through their financial check and they don't qualify. And now there's no backup plan. So really, that's why it's never too soon to be
Right.
looking at your options, demystifying the process, and finding options that make sense. And the first step with our complimentary consultation is making sure that there's a solid estate plan and financial plan before we talk about the options to consider.
Right, because that's one of the things that sort of happens. This is sort of like the conversation we have with older adults, which is who's going to care for you,
Yes.
right? And then it's well, the kids are going to do that. And then the conversation is, did you ever talk to the kids about it?
Are they
And
good at that? Is that in their skill set?
Right, is that something they want to do or anything
Yeah.
like that? And usually the conversation is, well, no, not yet. It's expected type of thing. But a similar thing can happen with the money, because people think, well, oh, I have this house, I'm just going to go to that house. And it doesn't always work like that. It doesn't work that smoothly.
Yeah, it's interesting. We're finding people now start planning earlier in their late 60s, early 70s to really look at with their financial planner and with our guidance. If I stay home and I ever need home care, what does that scenario look like?
Right.
If I move to assisted living and need care, what does that look like? What is the value of my home? How am I going to be able to do this, short and long term, which is the best thing that you can possibly do for yourself.
Yeah, what I
is to
tell my
start
clients
now.
is, my job isn't to make you wealthy. My job is to make sure that when those events happen in your life, like whether it's down, right sizing or whatever that is, that you are in charge of the choices.
Love that.
Because when you're reactive versus proactive, you don't have a choice or a limited number of choices, and you might not like any of them.
Right.
Or if you're reactive, like you said, you plan a little bit early, then you can say, well, if I need care, I want to stay in the home, well, I plan for home care, so that's an option I have. Where
can
if
make
you don't
those
do that,
sound
you don't have
decisions.
that option.
Right.
So you're doing this so you always are in control
Yes.
of the next step, because you don't know at this point what your choice is going to be. I don't know what I'm going to want to do 30 years from now.
Yes. And if you've recently witnessed your parent or an older loved one in your life experience this, this is the time to plan in your 50s or 60s so that you have the time to make the right
Right.
financial decisions, to be
Correct.
comfortable at that point. And there's so many creative financial solutions
yeah.
to do this for people. And it's really important. That's why we're thrilled to be with you today, to get this education out there. Please, it's never too soon to
Right. And so, and on that end, if you could bring up the next slide, like how do people contact you? How do they get in touch with you?
Yes, so we like a
Next
good
slide, sorry.
old-fashioned, that's okay. We love a good old-fashioned.
Oh, this is us,
Oh,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead, go ahead.
See, I jumped in.
Hello.
So, I didn't mean to cut her off. That's
No, go
just
ahead.
us, just for anybody out there as far as dealing with us, that QR code on the screen, that's how you get a hold of us. Go to the next slide, because I want to make sure that everybody has their contact information. Terrific. So if you
Great.
can just go ahead.
Yeah, feel free to pick up the phone, a good old-fashioned phone call. We love human-to-human communication, 617-227-1600. I'm Erin, I'm extension 1, Lauren's extension 2.
Yeah.
We'd also love for people to follow and like us on our social media at Dovetail Companies, or you can send us an email anytime.
And it's important to know we start everything with a complimentary consultation. It's really about getting to know you, your situation, and how we can support.
Well, that's great. We certainly appreciate you having on today.
Thank you.
That last slide that'll come up, that's just how to contact us. But we want to say thank you to both Erin and Lauren. You guys were great. This is a topic that everybody needs to do and everybody needs to look at. And we want to say thanks to everybody. Have
Cheers.
Cheers.
a skull.
We didn't cheers.
Oh, well, there you go. Sorry. Well, yeah,
Cheers,
we're not
cheers,
used to having
cheers,
people.
cheers,
Like Greg and I
cheers.
don't like each other.
No, we don't.
Yeah, thank you for having us.